should and can stand. Fortunately, we're living in a virtual space now, so we have over 116 registrants. So while we have just about 20 here, we have quite a number of persons online. So welcome, of course, to opportunities in UK-Jamaica Trade Export Business Forum. Senator, the Honorable Auburn Hill, Minister of Industry, Investments and Commerce, or the more updated name, the Business Ministry, of course. Her Excellency Judith Slater, British High Commissioner to Jamaica. Ms. Shulette Cox, President JAMPRO. Mr. Dan Hart, Regional Trade Advisor for the Caribbean Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. Shandilane Davis, my apologies, Senior Director, International and Industry Liaison, Jamaica Customs Agency. Dr. Velton Gooden, Executive Director of the Bureau of Standards, Jamaica. Members of the JAMPRO Board who are here today. I see Directors Hilton, McLaren, and McPherson. Other distinguished guests physically here and, of course, online. Good morning, all, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm Gabriel Heron, Marketing VP at JAMPRO. And for every activity I do, I like to have 2 or 3 words that I double down on in terms of the execution. And for this activity, what came to mind was alignment and action. And over engaging Dan over the last couple of months, I realized that there is significant alignment between JAMPRO and the British High Commission, because we had plans to do a similar kind of event. So when Dan came to me about it, it was just like, there is alignment. And the event is really about what actions are needed and what opportunities are there for us to action to make a lot of these trade opportunities, export opportunities a reality. So I won't delay any further. I will pleasure to introduce our newly minted president, Madam Shulette Cox, who is a proven stalwart in driving the business environment in Jamaica, particularly in her previous role as vice president from 2013. So this gives you, I want to understand her depth of knowledge here in policy, advocacy, and competitiveness, the initiatives that she drove. Without any further ado, I won't wait any longer. Please, Madam President.
Thank you, Gabriel. Senator the Honorable Auburn Hill, Minister of Business. Her Excellency Judith Slater, British High Commissioner of Jamaica. Dan Hart, Regional Trade Advisor for the Caribbean Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. Ms. Shandilane Davis, Senior Director, International and Industry Liaison, Jamaica Customs Agency. Dr. Velton Gooden, Executive Director, Bureau of Standards, Jamaica. Members of the JAMPRO Board present here today. Private sector representatives, JAMPRO team, distinguished guests here and those joining us online, good morning. So it is my pleasure to welcome you to the first ever UK-Jamaica Export Business Forum, Opportunities in the UK. I wish to thank the UK Department for International Trade for inviting the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce and JAMPRO to partner and collaborate on this event, which, as Gabriel just mentioned, is completely aligned with our refocused mission here at JAMPRO to grow Jamaican exports. We're very clear here in our agency, as well as at our ministry, that as a small island developing state, sustained trade is essential if we are to achieve economic growth. For the last 3 years, Jamaica, like the rest of the world, has felt the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on trade. And over that period, unfortunately, we've seen a reduction in Jamaican exports to the UK. We at JAMPRO are committed to changing that trend. It is against this background that a new chapter for trade relations, which were brought into effect on January 1, 2021, becomes important to our exporters. With the CARIFORUM-UK EPA agreement serving as a fundamental mechanism to ensure that we had continuous preferential trading agreements and investment relations between CARICOM states such as Jamaica and the UK, which guarantees us uninterrupted market access for all EPA benefits. For us here at JAMPRO, we see today's event as an important checkpoint for the arrangement. We're going to see exporters being provided with updates on the implementation of the EPA, as well as get a chance to hear about the opportunities, very important, the opportunities for expansion and diversification of exports into the UK. Importantly, our exporters will also be able to share the experiences that they've had, including the impediments, as we work together to find solutions to make it easier to export to the UK. With JAMPRO's renewed focus on significantly growing exports in the coming years, practical workshops such as this will become more common as we continue to develop and implement strategies to make it easier for our productive sectors to export and making exports in general more attractive. With the assistance of our exporters, potential buyers, in-market specialists, and trade facilitation partners, we believe that JAMPRO is now ready and positioned to take up the challenge that our minister has given at every opportunity for us to positively impact Jamaica's persistent trade imbalance and position exports as the key pillar of Jamaica's economic growth. Coming out of today's discussions, the JAMPRO team, as always, stands ready to connect Jamaican exporters and potential exporters with buyers in the UK. And we look forward to supporting your efforts to grow your business by accessing global markets. I want to thank those of you here with us today, as well as those joining online. And I look forward to the positive feedback from the exchange of business knowledge and the application of practical information that will be shared, as together we strive and achieve in making Jamaica a place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. Thank you, and I wish for you a very productive business forum.
Thank you, Madam President. I think I'm beginning to like to refer to you as Madam President. It has a certain ring to it. Setting the stage nicely for Her Excellency Judith Slater to speak, and I must say that HC has a certain level of enthusiasm about business opportunities that is contagious. So it is really a pleasure to have you here today for us to speak on behalf of the opportunities, to speak on the opportunities. So ladies and gentlemen, I won't delay any longer. Welcome Her Excellency Judith Slater, British High Commission.
Thank you very much, Gabriel. Morning, everybody. Senator the Honourable Auburn Hill, Minister of Business, Madam President Choulette. If you don't mind, after that, I'm going to say all protocols observed because we want to get to cut to the chase. But firstly, I would like to congratulate Choulette on her appointment as President of JAMPRO and thank her and her team for all the hard work in organising today's forum in partnership. And I think the word that I would use, you said alignment and action, I would say partnership for this sort of work with us, the partnership with us at the High Commission. I'm delighted that everybody's here today and to welcome all the people online as well to today's discussion on deepening trade links between Jamaica and the UK. The importance of trade to growth and development is a topic I am personally very passionate about, as Gabriel mentioned, because my previous role, for those who don't know, I was Her Majesty's Trade Commissioner for Eastern Europe and Central Asia based in Istanbul. So it was a fascinating role covering a very, very wide region. And I was one of 9 such commissioners appointed globally. So I know that also that this is something that Senator Hill is equally passionate about, as you'll no doubt hear and may have heard before. And I was fortunate to hear him speak yesterday at the Diplomatic Week, which is ongoing at the moment for all ambassadors accredited to Jamaica, many of whom have come in from other places. And they would have been left in absolutely no doubt about his enthusiasm for growing Jamaica's exports. But when I was doing my role in Istanbul, I saw that the difference that exporting can make to businesses. Because when you become an exporter, you get access to bigger markets, richer markets, but you also get exposure to new ideas, technologies, And exports, it is well documented that exports increase job creation, job retention, productivity, and overall revenue for companies. So the UK is equally passionate as Jamaica in ensuring that our businesses start exporting if they're not already doing so. Beyond this, it also fosters stronger bonds between countries. Consumers see a place through the lens of the products that they buy from there. And that's why quality, transparency, sustainability are all so important in doing business. And the UK remains a leader, I'm proud to say, on this front. Our new Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, announced last month that he was combining different departments to form a Department for Business and Trade, which was previously just the Department for International Trade, but it brings together the business expertise from what was then called BAYS. But they're now together, as I've long advocated actually, now in one department we have all the expertise on the different sectors. So that will hopefully be an even better service provider to businesses wanting to invest in the UK. We have some of our DBT team here today, and they can help to connect you to UK businesses, and I'll say a little more about that later. We also have an exciting and growing UK export finance offer. Some of you will have met Jessie McDoodle when she's visited twice already, and she'll be coming back. She's based in Houston, but she represents UK export finance in this part of the world. They provide credit guarantees and other debt financing projects for businesses in Jamaica, and on generous terms, so long as the deal in question includes a minimum of 20% UK content. So I very much encourage companies looking for high quality, innovative products, whether it be greater variety of finished goods for consumers or better inputs to your production processes, helping to build Jamaica's climate resilience, for example, and other development goals. Please do tap into the UK if you're not already as a source market. But of course, Jamaica's also making a name for itself beyond its already stellar reputation as a tourist destination or home of world-class athletes and musicians. Jamaica is carving out a niche through success stories like high-end coffee or indeed the global outsourcing sector. But I'm sure, as Minister Hill will tell us soon, more needs to be done. Total trade in goods between the UK and Jamaica was just under £400 million in the year up to Q3 of 2022, which was an increase of 43% on the previous year. But while this represents a partial recovery after COVID-19, this is not yet a return to pre-pandemic levels. And prior to that, to be very honest, trade between our two countries had been broadly stagnant for the best part of a decade, which is not where we want it to be. For Jamaica, while tourism has grown steadily, the country's traditional export commodities have declined and other diversified goods have not kept pace with that decline. And Jamaican SMEs in particular have struggled to break through internationally. I know many of you already know this. And this is where the Economic Partnership Agreement, which Shulette touched on, or the EPA, can help. And you'll hear more from Dan Hart about this shortly. The CARIFORUM-UK EPA, as we call it, which came into effect in January 2021, is working to permanently remove trade barriers between the UK and the Caribbean. For example, it's providing duty-free access to the UK market for Jamaican and other CARIFORUM exporters, which gives Jamaica companies a competitive edge over businesses from elsewhere who don't benefit from these agreements and are trying to sell into the UK. And British businesses should also benefit from a gradual reduction in tariffs coming this way on the vast majority of our goods over the next 10 years. There are also benefits of trade in services, with most services sectors having been liberalised under the agreement. And the UK is committed to the full and effective implementation of the EPA. We do have some joint challenges on this at the moment. Some countries in the region are not reducing tariffs in line with their EPA commitments, and I'm pleased to say Jamaica is not amongst that number. But we also do want Jamaica and other CARIFORUM states to ratify the EPA and bring it into domestic legislation. This will provide the predictability and transparency which traders and investors need to take decisions over the medium and longer term. And the UK remains very open to assisting partners in this ratification process. And we're currently finalising a new project actually with the CARICOM Secretariat, which should support this further still, and other technical EPA issues which are faced by CARIFORUM countries. So we'll be providing support on some of those. And the UK's wider development work in Jamaica is already supporting export diversification through the Compete Caribbean initiative, which I hope you will have heard about, and under the UK Trade Partnerships Programme, we're supporting some select companies, and I believe we have one or two of those with us today, on what we call the last mile of the export process, so connecting them with buyers in the UK. We also look forward to the convening of the EPA Joint Council this year, where we can discuss these matters further. And I also look forward to two events coming up later this year, in the first half of the year actually, which is the UK Caribbean Ministerial Forum, which is held every 2 years. It was held 2 years ago virtually in London, and it will be held this May here, hosted by Jamaica. And then following that, we're going to have the UK-Jamaica Strategic Dialogue, which is the first of a kind, which is between our foreign ministers. But of course, your foreign minister is also Minister for Foreign Trade, and our foreign minister is also equally enthusiastic about trade, and it is an integral part of his work. So we are hoping that that event will, we can also use that to celebrate some successes that we will have achieved together, and also look to give a push to some other deals that we're working on. But coming back to the EPA, from the outset, we've made clear that the EPA needs to be a living agreement, something that businesses understand, that businesses utilize, and that's why sessions like today are really important, because we're coming together to break down the knowledge barriers that exist for traders looking to each other's markets. We're going to share experiences and information on the opportunities for our private sector arising from the EPA, and we're also going to hear about the stages of the export process from Jamaican colleagues. Ultimately, so that's the core objective of the EPA, is to make it easier for our businesses to invest in and trade with each other while taking into account our respective levels of economic and social development. So in conclusion, today I'd like to hear from you what you think might be preventing you from either exporting to the UK or just leaping into exports, generally, and find out what we can do to help you overcome that. Because the EPA has ushered in a new chapter in UK-Jamaica trade relationship between our two countries, and it's a really exciting time to be doing business together. There are so many untapped opportunities, and I, along with my team, as Minister Hill and Shulette know well, are really committed to realising these opportunities to support jobs and generate mutual growth and prosperity. So just before I close, I want to say thank you very much to Dan Hart, our Regional Trade Advisor. This is his last event in Jamaica. He will sadly be leaving us after 3 and a half years in Jamaica, and will be heading off to a new assignment in Ethiopia. He will be replaced because it's a very important position for us, so we will be filling that post. But we wish him all the very best and thank him for his work. And I also wanted to just acknowledge, many of you will already know Hadari Stewart, sitting there behind the minister, because he's formerly of this parish. And this isn't the first time that we have poached somebody from JAMPRO, or indeed JAMPRO has poached people from us, because there is almost a seamless flow of personnel going between the two. And I think that just underscores how closely aligned our goals are, because somebody like Hadari can move from JAMPRO into working for Department of Business and Trade at the British High Commission, and he understands completely what we're all trying to achieve together. So it really is a win-win. So with that, thank you very much indeed, and I look forward to the rest of the seminar.
Thank you, Her Excellency. As I said, ladies and gentlemen, you could see the enthusiasm and the number of business opportunities that she so clearly highlighted. Our next speaker is, I like the phrase, the man of business, the man of export. He wants us to eat, sleep, breathe, and ultimately drive export to enable the creation of business success and wealth in Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to welcome our Minister, Senator the Honorable Auburn Hill, Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce.
Thank you, Gabriel, Mr. Master of Ceremonies. Excellency, the British High Commissioner, Mrs. Judith Slater, who is, among other things, a very good tennis player. Madam Shulette Cox, I suppose I have to call you now, given that what Gabriel has branded you. The new president of JAMPRO. I'm not sure I've spoken in this forum. I'm sure I have not spoken in this forum since you become president, so congratulations, Shulette. And right after you, your board members. I see some of your board members here. JAMPRO board members, thank you for serving. Good to see you this morning. Of course, Mr. Heron, who is the Vice President for Marketing here at JAMPRO. Mr. Dan Hart, who's been here for 3 years and still young and going to a very challenging assignment, but I'm sure one that excites you. Ethiopia is a very interesting place given what they're trying to do to come back together. So good luck in your new assignment, and thank you for serving in Jamaica. We appreciate it. Private sector participants, other distinguished guests, and those who are online. Media practitioners, always good to see you there. And we're very pleased to be here. I am very pleased to be here to welcome you to this special event to seek to find and grasp opportunities in UK-Jamaica trade. Not just find them, we have to grasp them. And opportunities don't hang around for you. When you see them, take them. If you've heard me speak in the last while since I've been here as a minister, about a year now, you'll know that I am very, very concerned about exports. I have 3 main objectives: grow export, and the press people and the marketing people leave out the word exponentially. So I'm adding it for you, okay? Not just grow it. That I don't want where we are, the trade balance so bad that you're not going to get there incrementalizing anything. So I'm not interested in the incremental stuff. You hear, Gabriel? No bother with it. I want serious exponential growth in export if we're going to get where we have to go. The second one is we have to bring in investments, but it's bringing in from local and foreign direct investment. We don't focus enough on local investors. A whole heap of people have money in Jamaica. I ran the biggest bank here. I'm telling you, it's the truth. And I didn't see all of the money because all of it is not in Jamaica. They can bring back some of it to Jamaica. And you know what? They are. Businessmen, it was at the British High Commission, maybe 6 months ago, I was talking to very big Jamaican businessmen. And they said to me, and you know, big businessmen don't believe that they have any strong political alignments. They have strong business alignments, and so they invest where their interests are and where they see opportunities. And they said to me, in 30, 40 years, they haven't seen anything like this in Jamaica. So Jamaican business people are coming in. So I want local direct investment and foreign direct investment. And of course, where it has to happen, JAMPRO and the ministry. So, and the third one is, as we get to a place where we have very tight unemployment is historical low, we have to train a lot more people. Those 300, 400,000 people, mainly young men, some young women, but mainly young men who have to be trained as apprenticeship. Germany wasn't built by PhDs and lawyers. I promise you. Germany was built by apprentices, people who had skills, artisans who could build Mercedes-Benz and BMW and make chemicals at BASF and wherever else they make chemicals in Germany. So I'm saying to you, Jamaica has that opportunity. We have to look at it differently. Yes, we need the tertiary education. We need people to be educated. But understand, we don't need a lot of PhDs and lawyers to make things and build exports. We need a lot more apprentices, which we have not been training. So you know what? We're negotiating and cooperating with HEART to make sure we make that done. So I'm saying that so you can understand the role of exports and trade for us. On behalf of the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, which we now call Jamaica's Business Ministry, and of course JAMPRO, which is one of the 20 agencies in the ministry, I wish to thank the British High Commission for collaborating on this event, especially High Commissioner Slater. Thank you very much, Madam Judith. We're very pleased that you cooperate with us so closely and all the time, and she invites us to her events and We get to talk to the people who come from Britain, and we have a very close relationship across the board, from security to trade, and we really appreciate that. We don't have any comments to say on Brexit, except that we must take every opportunity we can get, Shalette. Do you hear me? So, this forum provides Jamaican exporters with the opportunity to gain more insight into CARIFORUM-UK Economic Partnership Agreement. I just reach over to Shalette, High Commissioner, and I didn't know, I wasn't quite sure where the ratification was. So I said to her, get to my Chief Technical Director, Ms. Parkins and Shalette, and bring it to me. We must get it done. We must do what we must do. Okay, because it's something that is in our interest. In 2008, Jamaica, along with other Caribbean islands, came together with Britain to form the CARIFORUM Economic Partnership Agreement. March 22nd, 2019, CARIFORUM member countries began signing an economic partnership agreement with the UK. There are 13 participants to this now, and we Jamaican must move ahead. You heard the trade figures talked about by High Commissioner. They're coming back. Jamaica has actually done not so badly in the last year. It's one of the few countries in which we have a positive trade balance, and I know that the High Commissioner and her people will be making sure that they export a lot more. So we have to run faster, guys, and that's how trade happens. When we run and compete nicely, even affectionately, but we must win, you can win. There are a host of benefits made available to Jamaican exporters, including being provided with market intelligence and technical assistance. And don't underrate that. That's important. And I implore local business entities to delve into the details of the partnership agreement, some of which will be uncovered here, to enable the leveraging of opportunities and access to the large retail sales market of the UK, valued at £496 billion. Now, I have to give you the big figures so you get the perspective as to what you're dealing with. You know, we just get a small little percentage of that, Al, and you'll be writing about it in the Observer till you're tired. And Loop, no, Observer is beside you. Loop, you were at the Observer. So, you know, we're looking forward to that. Jamaica has no choice but to export a lot more. We have no choice. In 60 years, we had 1 year of positive trade balance, 1966, decades ago. We are underwater. We have a negative trade balance of $4.534 billion in 2021. That cannot survive. We have a small population, only 3 million, and our per capita GDP is less than 5,000. You cannot get rich selling to 3 million people who are relatively poor. So you know what? Every business in Jamaica, and everybody hearing me on this, you must find a way to export. We do not talk about export. That's all Germany talks about. That's all China talks about. China cannot be a rich country. They would never have been a wealthy country if they didn't get into WTO, the World Trade Organization, under the Clinton administration, and then take it on seriously. They sell everything. All the things that you think shouldn't be made in China, they make them there too, including things that are only black, green, and gold Jamaican. They have no shame, and we shouldn't have any either. Go and make it and sell it and export it. You can only get rich exporting to rich countries, and UK is one of them. And luckily, they want to trade with us. So here we are today. Take the opportunity. Many issues faced by Jamaican exporters of goods and services are sector-specific and outside of any trade agreement. You must sort out yourself. Businesses, I'm talking to you, get export in your mind. When you go to your board meetings, when you go to your retreat, you look back over the past 7-10 years. You used to be the head, or might still be the head, of the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce. How many times business have on their retreat agenda? Export. How much are we going to export? No. 4, 5, 6 companies. And they are the big ones. So learn now. If you are going to be in business, don't look to trade to Jamaica alone, because when you export, you're going to get some really good things. You're going to get competition. I am recommending that you take it. The only way Bolt became number one is by competition. If he didn't have Asaf and the others running beside him and helping him and pushing him in, he could never be there. Serena couldn't be where she was and where she got to unless somebody was pushing her all the time. So go for the competition. Look for British competition. They are ruthless. Compete with them. Right, Dan? So you're going to get the ability, you're going to learn to compete. Make sure you grab it with all your hands. Raising awareness, you're going to make sure your awareness is changed. You're going to make sure that you learn better management methods. You're going to learn about logistics. For exporting, you have to understand logistics. The British have been trading forever. I was listening to something on Russia on BBC this week, and before Catherine the Great came and before Peter the Great actually took over Ukraine, I won't give you the history. The British saw themselves as, naturally, the rulers of the world. They were running the merchant ships around the world. But they were buying a lot of things from Russia because the masts in the wooden ships, British trees didn't grow tall enough. They had to get trees, the pine trees from Russian and the Baltic area because they grew so tall. And it's interesting how trade develops. And you would never think that the biggest merchant country in the world, to get the mass, you have to go find it somewhere else. Now, Jamaicans understand you can't have everything. Sources from elsewhere, put it together. Better yet, if you put in a special economic zone, which is one of the agencies in this ministry. And then so you import in, no fees, no duties. You export out, no fees, no duties. And why aren't you exporting? What's wrong with Trinidad? Jamaicans stay here and complain how Trinidad come here and invest. And what's wrong with you? Why you don't go over there and invest? So you know what? I'm taking a trade mission there next Wednesday. So I'll slip it in nicely. So if you're not on it and you want to go, talk to Shillette. That's after Guyana. And right after that, we're going to Downright. And later this year, we're going to Britain. Shillette and the High Commissioner are working on it. So there are lots of benefits to get from. The EPA agreement awards for us providing transparency on the UK import requirements. Know how you're going to trade, providing technical assistance to build capacity. Jamaica food companies such as Grace Food, True Juice, Walker's Wood have invested in the UK, while local financial entities, they have Jane Bank here, but really it's wrongly written. It should have been NCB. Can you imagine that? Where is Earl? So this text says JN Bank, so I'm going to read it. Then it says VMBS, and then it says NCB. I'm going to ask the speechwriter if they didn't know who was giving the speech. But really, all our financial institutions, all three of them, have done very well in Britain. I'm very proud that they're all there. And I'm recommending that you use them and get introduced to the British financial system through the Jamaican ones that they're there. So we have a very good working relationship with the UK. The UK will remain Jamaica's largest trading partner within Europe and top 10 overall. However, more needs to be done to showcase and highlight the opportunities, and through JAMPRO's regional office in London and the Economic Diplomacy Program, efforts continue to enhance business ties with the UK. Getting more trade with the UK is not the UK's responsibility. Getting more Jamaican trade with the UK is Jamaican business and government responsibility, primarily business responsibility. We open doors, we make the playing field fair as government, but businesses must step up to the plate. And businesses put on your agenda, every board meeting agenda, how much are we going to export? Because it's not on your agenda. I sat on many boards for a long time, and it's not there. So if we're going to become a wealthy country, we are going to have to export to rich countries, UK being one, so start putting it on your agenda. And if you don't, maybe you can't start immediately, but unless you start, put it on your agenda, it will never happen. So I'm recommending it. You're going to hear that often, so you might as well start this week. The Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Jamaica's business ministry, in collaboration with JAMPRO, looks forward to supporting Jamaican exporters in getting their goods into the UK. Through the knowledge sharing of packaging requirement, you have to package the thing properly. It must be nice. If you want to step up on High Street in Brittany, you better make it rock. It better be nice. So make sure you get the best packaging people. Alice from England, Al knows the story. Novia from Observer, they know the story. Don't worry, go with your flimsy stuff. Get good packaging. What does that mean? People who are interested in packaging Jamaica will have even more work to do. More work for Jamaicans. So get your packaging and processing stuff right. Provisions of sector-specific information and introductions to potential buyers in the UK. I am also certain, based on the engagement here today, that the British High Commission will support this drive. She's here, I know her commitment, and she wants to have it happen, and her staff. This is indeed an exciting time for UK-Jamaica trade relations. Coming out of the pandemic, Britain Prime Minister Sunak just sorted out, or mainly sorted out, much of what's happening with UK, with the European Union. Good news there. Whenever trade flows easy, it's better for all of us. There appears to be a strong desire from the UK government and private sector players to explore trade and investment opportunities in Jamaica. Why not? It's the best performing economy in the Caribbean. Why wouldn't you, looking here, look at our growth rate, 8.1% in 2021, 22, 20, and 2020, 21, into up to 2022, we're 5.7. We're growing, or we have good foreign exchange, and we have investment opportunities. So it's a good place to be there. And so my ministry will continue to welcome discussions and investment, and through our 20 agencies, and the ministry itself will provide all necessary support for these investments to be finalized and implemented. Understand, don't believe that the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce is something far away with the government. It is your ministry. It's you pay for it. It's taxpayers' money. We're here to help businesses to pay more taxes to make sure your government is well supported. So we will do everything we can within the law to make sure that we support business. We're very pleased to have the British High Commissioner here with us this morning, the British High Commission staff, and to look at Shillette, how quickly we're going to get that EPA signed. Thank you so much, and good trading and lots of exports.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I wish I had tallied the amount of time you said export in your presentation just now. That number would have been quite interesting. We now transition from the opening session to the information-oriented sessions. And just so you know, we have 3 sessions planned for you. And thereafter, we'll have a Q&A where you're able to ask the individuals delivering sessions 1, 2, and 3 pertinent and important questions around the EPA and around export. So this is where the information, or where the rubber really meets the road, so to speak. Our next speaker is Mr. Dan Hart. And he was integral in initiating and the staging of this event, as I mentioned previously. Dan and I started a conversation. He said they have plans to do it. We're aligned. Let's get it done. The timelines were a little bit challenging at first, but we thought that with Dan leaving, he wanted to have it before he left. It was very important for him, and he will be bringing information on implementing the CARIFORUM-UK EPA for trade-related growth and development. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dan Hart, Regional Trade Advisor for the Caribbean Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. Thank you, Dan.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Minister. Good morning, High Commissioner. President Shillette Cox, great to see you. Gabriel, thanks for your work. It's been fantastic working with you and the team to put this event together. Everybody else, it's great to see you here in person, and those, the many who I know are joining online. As has been said, I'm the UK's regional trade advisor and head of trade policy in the Caribbean. I have been based here in Jamaica for the last 3.5 years. My role is regional, and I've traveled to almost all of the 15 CARIFORUM countries that are part of the EPA. And I should make very clear that I know that I chose well being based here. There's an absolute no-brainer. It's very clear. So thank you for having me and hosting me so wonderfully over the last few years. I've had a fantastic time. So since the UK left the EU single market 2 years ago, and it took on its own trade policy, as both High Commissioner and the Minister have said, we have a new paradigm in UK-Jamaica trade. The heart of this is the CARIFORUM-UK Economic Partnership Agreement. It's an agreement which both liberalizes and governs the trade that takes place between the UK and the Caribbean. So those businesses wanting to trade, it's vital that you know what that agreement is, how your trade is governed, what rules you need to adhere to, and what benefits there are available to you as a trader. So my plan is to use, I think, just 15 minutes to give what will very much be an overview of the EPA. I'll highlight some of its benefits and shine a light on some of the things that you as businesses should be looking for yourselves as you sort of you take this information forward and start to look into this more yourselves. We're never going to be able to cover the full breadth or depth of the EPA. It's over 1,000 pages long. So I don't wish on my worst enemy sitting down and reading through the entire agreement. We'll never cover all of that. But my aim today is to give you a language and some some confidence to go forward and to use the many tools that are out there. Lots and lots of fantastic information available online. Information available through your local business support organizations, JAMPRO and others. Also on the UK government website, gov.uk, it has just a wealth of fantastic information that is incredibly easy to navigate and to follow, and I would really encourage you as a business to sort of take on that mantle yourself and as the minister says, get exporting. So yeah, we'll have a bit of time for questions. I think at the end, once we've heard the 3 presentations. But if there's anything that you want to those in the room, if there's anything that you want to clarify as I'm going through, then please do put your hand up and we can have a conversation. So here's the things that we're going to cover. Let's just dive into it. So firstly, so that's your outline, covering goods and services, some of the sort of institutional arrangements that are there to support implementation, and then a bit of equipping you with the tools and information to take this forward after today. So we've talked. You've heard lots about Brexit. You've heard lots about the EPA. There is a CARIFORUM UK EPA. There's also a CARIFORUM EU EPA. So how did we get here? Why did we negotiate this new agreement? So in 2017, as the UK was leaving the EU, negotiations began on 2 fronts. So firstly, the UK was negotiating with the EU on the nature of its future relationship, but recognizing the risk that EU agreements would no longer apply to the UK post-Brexit. In parallel, the UK undertook a series of negotiations with all of those partners that we currently had a trade agreement with as a member of the EU. And that included agreeing the new economic partnership agreement with CARIFORUM states. Of course, Jamaica is one of those 15 CARIFORUM states. So since and you know the sort of the grandfather of the UK agreement is still the EU agreement. They're very similar in their substance. And it's worth highlighting why that was. So the UK, while it was negotiating these trade deals, it was still legally constrained in its ability to negotiate new deals because it was still at that time an EU member state. So the agreed objective was to secure what we called then a continuity or rollover deal, more or less. So that was essentially keeping the core parts of the EU deal in place. So although these were rollover agreements that we were negotiating at the time, it was still a huge task, and we ended up covering more than 30 FTAs in a period of about 2 years, with about 70 different countries in total. And then finally, as of 1st of January 2021, we successfully brought into effect a new EPA which governs trade between the UK and 14 signatory Caribbean states, including Jamaica. Okay, so let's get into the EPA a bit. This is a picture of the signing, which took place in St. Lucia in 2019. Okay, so key point number one from about this agreement. It's a reciprocal trade and development partnership. It's designed to open up and enhance trade between the UK and CARIFORUM states. Now, that's important because it is, you know, as has been indicated by both the Minister and the High Commissioner, there's reciprocity built into this deal. It supports exports both from Jamaica and from the UK. Now, it is also a development-focused partnership. So it was geared to support poverty reduction and economic development in the Caribbean. And in that sense, it has a weighting in favor of the Caribbean. Another reason why Jamaican and other Caribbean companies should be really sort of grasping this as much as they can to make use of the balance that is in their favor through this agreement. So, as I say, it replicates the effects of the existing CARIFORUM EU EPA, and most importantly, ensures that continuation of market access, providing duty-free, quota-free access for CARIFORUM exports into the UK market. It's also what we call a comprehensive agreement. So this is an agreement that doesn't just cover trade in goods. It covers trade in services, for those of you who are service providers, but also a whole range of other really important trade policy issues, you know, whether that's intellectual property. I think we have someone from JAMPRO here today, or if not in the room, on the line. It's great that we've got that kind of intellectual property angle covered. Procurement, competition policy, a whole range of policy issues that shape the trading environment, and as such, ensure that there are both there's greater access and greater protections for Caribbean businesses into the UK and UK business into the region. So, as I say, it's an asymmetric. Whilst it's reciprocal, it's asymmetric in favor of the Caribbean. And what does that mean? So, whilst as of now, as of day one, 1st of January 2021, CARIFORUM goods into the UK were granted duty-free, quota-free access. In the opposite direction, the access that is granted, whilst it will eventually cover most goods, that is phased in over time. So up to the year 2033, there will be a gradual lowering of tariffs on UK exports coming into this region. There are also some protections for sensitive CARIFORUM sectors that have been carved out, mainly agriculture, and then some other mechanisms to protect local industry from things like surges of imports of particular goods. So just to sort of set that in a regional context, we've heard a bit about the trade figures between UK and Jamaica, and I'll look at that again in a second. But just to put that in context, so we now have a total bilateral trade relationship in covering both goods and services between the UK and the 15 CARIFORUM states of £4.5 billion in the year ending Q3 2022. And yeah, I mean, this is the bit that we care about today, and you know, it surprises me to look at this number and look at where Jamaica sits compared to the other Caribbean states. For me, Jamaica's always felt like one of the most complex and deep trade relationships that the UK has in the region. But this is not coming through in the numbers. You know, if you look at, you know, I guess now the oil producers of Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago, perhaps unsurprisingly, given the numbers, given oil price rises last year, it's not surprising that they're so high. But you know, you've got Barbados, Dominican Republic, the Bahamas that are still outpacing Jamaica in that regional picture. Now, we should remember that this also includes services, so it will include tourism figures as part of this. But still, that Jamaica's in the middle of the pack is you know, not good enough. The minister's words. So that's you know, that's the regional context. We've heard some of these figures already, but let me just get them up again on the screen for you. So, and I won't go through this. The headline figure is 397 million pounds in bilateral trade. This we might want to just have a quick look at. So Jamaica's top 5 goods exports to the UK. Beverages outstripping all other products. That's been the case for several years now. That's primarily rum and fortified wine. The High Commissioner talked about having exports or imports creating a lens for consumers on a foreign market, and I think you should be proud of the rum that is. Oh, I think we've lost. Okay, well, actually, we can focus on the piece on the right hand side. So, Jamaica's top 5 imports from the UK, primarily, and this is really important, primarily intermediate goods. So, manufactured goods, machinery, things that are vital to the production process locally here. And I think, you know, that speaks to the nature of the relationship that we have and that we can build on. It's not competition. You know, the UK goods coming in are not competing directly with by and large with the stuff that Jamaica is producing at the moment. Instead, what's coming in from the UK are the things that enable more innovative, more cost-efficient production and export. So, you know, there's a sort of a symbiotic relationship at the moment. But, you know, looking at these figures, and I think actually that is something that you don't see so clearly elsewhere in the region. I think there's a real strength there that we should be building on. And I think through all of this, I would ask JAMPRO. You know, I know your focus is on exports. But other BSOs here, the Chamber, the EPA is not just important for what it does for Jamaican exporters. It's important what it does for Jamaican importers. You know, it's why implementation of the agreement is so important. The reduction of the tariffs in line with the schedule, as HC said, you know, Jamaica is currently on track with that. Ratification vital. It gives sort of business, you know, UK exporters thinking about doing business with Jamaica, providing these intermediate goods. It gives them the confidence and the predictability that they want for making sort of medium, longer term decisions. So one other figure I just wanted to. Can we? Are you guys working on writing the screen at the moment? It's sort of pulled over to the left at the moment. So what you can't quite see here, but is really important at the bottom, is that 83%. So bear with me here. 83% of the eligible goods imports from Jamaica into the UK in 2020 were imported utilizing the preferences under the EPA. So what that means is that there is 17% of goods that Jamaica is exporting into the UK that could be benefiting from the duty-free, quota-free access under the EPA that they are not benefiting from at present. That gap is too big. That should be that needs to. I mean, I was in St. Lucia a couple of weeks ago. That number is the number there is 99% in St. Lucia. So there's a gap that needs to be closed there. Now, find them all, the minister says. So I think, you know, first thing to say is sometimes there are logical business reasons why that's the case. You know, it may be that the cost of say complying with the rules of origin, which we're going to hear about later through the agreement, are just a bit too high and don't warrant the extra effort. But more often than not, this is about a lack of education. It's about a lack of understanding, sometimes that the EPA even exists, and even where there's a knowledge that the EPA exists, what they're entitled to, what businesses are entitled to, and then how they can tackle them. So, you know, and that's the point of this conversation today. It's to highlight this, it's to highlight the offer that's there, and to start bridging that education gap. So, in terms of the benefits that are available to goods traders under the EPA. So, as has been said many times, but it is worth reiterating. The EPA provides immediate duty-free, quota-free access on all CARIFORUM goods into the UK market. What that means is this is preferential treatment. So the UK has what's called a global tariff. It's the tariff that we apply at the border to the rest of the world, to countries with which we do not have a trade agreement. The UK global tariff continues to place tariffs on imports on a whole range of products. Now, the EPA ensures that you as a Caribbean business do not face those tariffs. So what the EPA does is it gives you a cost advantage. It gives you a competitive edge over other businesses that would be exporting from elsewhere. So as I've said, for goods coming the other way, the EPA ensures a progressive reduction in tariffs that Jamaica imposes on many goods from the UK, and that has a sort of a phased implementation. So every couple of years, a new chunk of tariffs are liberalized, and that runs up to 2033. So a reminder that the EPA provides protections for CARIFORUM's and Jamaica's most sensitive local products. So ag and fishery products tend to be carved out under the agreement. You know, these always tend to be sort of sensitive sectors anywhere really. The third is, and I've mentioned this already, flexible rules of origin. Now, fortunately, So as a sort of trade geek, this is one of my favorite topics, rules of origin, and we're going to be blessed with a presentation on solely on rules of origin a bit later, I think after me. For now, I'll just say what this does, in broad terms, is it allows goods that are produced here in Jamaica to include content from anywhere else in the region, but also any African country and any EU country, and to still qualify for that preferential treatment into the UK market. So that's a real benefit. That means that the minister said earlier, Jamaica doesn't have everything here. It needs to be bringing in, equipment, or it needs to be bringing in technical advice, intellectual property sometimes even. It needs to be bringing that in. It can bring in that content and still qualify for the benefits under the EPA. So this is a really important point and does warrant a whole conversation in itself. And then this kind of quite interesting provision in the EPA called the Most Favored Nation Principle, and that means that the UK must give CARIFORUM states any more advantageous treatment that it concludes through other FTAs to CARIFORUM. So any other trade deal that we negotiate that comes up with a better goods offer, that offer that then needs to be applied to CARIFORUM. So it's a sort of, again, it's a living agreement. Okay. I think I was going to talk through a sort of a case study. I don't know if Scotch Boys ended up coming today. No. Okay. Well, that's a company that we're supporting through the UK Trade Partnerships Program. I chose hot sauce as an example because it's deemed that there's quite a bit of untapped potential through some of the online tools for condiments and sauces from Jamaica into the UK. And just I guess 2 or 3 practical things that you should be thinking about if you're a goods exporter. Firstly, what is my good? There's an internationally recognized trading system, the harmonized system, and what that does is it designates every single good with a specific code, and that is the code that then, so long as you can sort of meet the requirements of it, that's the code that gives you the access and the benefits that are set out under the agreement. So firstly, know what you're exporting. Secondly, as I say, we deem there to be some significant untapped potential for this product. That's not in the EPA. There are other tools online. I've included the source here. These slides are going to get shared afterwards. Follow the links to these tools to sort of understand where you feel like there may be, or if you're wanting to ask yourself the question, is there some potential for my particular export in a particular market? There are tools out there that can help you understand that in broad terms. So look at that. Now we get to the kind of the key numbers. So 3rd bullet down. Of course, Jamaican exporters into the UK for exporting condiments and sauces. What duty are they going to have to pay? 0%, exactly. All goods duty-free access into the UK market. Now, what everyone else has to pay is a 6% duty. The UK global tariff sets a 6% duty on condiments and sauces being imported into the UK. So right there is a 6% cost advantage for all of your condiments and sauces exporters. This is one example of many, and I could have chosen any one, but I went with this one because I hoped Scotch Boys might be in the room today. So that was goods. Let's just have a quick look at services. So UK services trade with Jamaica. A lot of this will be not that surprising to you. Sorry if that's not particularly clear. On the left-hand side is Jamaica services exports. 75% of that is what's called travel. That's mainly tourism. But there are some other segments in there that are sort of significant enough and growing. Telecoms, ITC, and other business services, which also wraps in the global services sector. So and those numbers have been growing. So what does the EPA do for, and here's the latest data that we have on FDI stocks. Again, this is something that we that is surprisingly low, and I think is something that we want to be shifting. There are provisions in the EPA that support both services and investment. So let's just take a very quick look at some of that. So the first thing to say about services and services in trade policy is that most trade agreements, and the EPA is included in this, include services commitments, but these are more about locking in existing national commitments and protections rather than making new ones like you did on goods. Okay? So, but this is still valuable. It provides predictability and certainty for companies if they're a service provider. Gives you the assurance that you need to sort of move into that new market. So I'd say sort of think of the services protections as more like a backstop beyond which the partners cannot row back. So to understand exactly what the EPA does for you as a service provider, you need to be thinking about what type of service you're actually providing. So similar to goods, think about the sort of product code that you fit into. For services, you need to think about the type of service that you provide, because the access that you get through the agreement differs depending on that on the sort of these different categories. The agreement divides sort of all services into these three broad categories. So the first is what it calls cross-border supply of services. So that includes the supply of services remotely. So think of consulting services provided by phone or email, or say a distance learning course. It also includes travel to a destination to receive a service, which is mainly tourism. And on this, so this is sort of mode 1, cross-border supply. CARIFORUM, so Jamaica, has access to the majority of UK sectors, and that's thanks to this principle that is set down in the EPA. You don't need to worry about it, but I'm talking you through it so that you understand the mechanisms through which you get this access and these protections. So this is what's called the principle of national treatment. And this means that UK regulators, and the same goes the other way around, what it means is that UK regulators can't discriminate against Jamaican service suppliers. So essentially, they have to be treated the same as UK service suppliers would be. And likewise, if there are UK service suppliers on the line, then you get that same protection through the national treatment principle in Jamaica. So the second type of service concerns what's called commercial presence, and this is basically investment. And again, both UK and Jamaica have opened up most of their sectors to investment. And the third is what's called the temporary movement of natural persons. Again, this is just trade speak. Basically, it's people. So it's the physical movement of a person from one place to another. Basically the sort of thing that you might need a visa for. And I mention visas because this is where the EPA provides a backstop, but you will need to look at the gov.uk website and the latest visa regulations to understand what exactly applies to you, depending on your intention of business for going to the UK. But as just to highlight a couple of examples, if you're a company with operations in both countries, both UK and Jamaica, you can bring in a graduate trainee for a year, so long as they meet certain conditions. That is provided for in the EPA. There's a sort of baseline that's offered there. Or if you're wanting to do a intra-corporate transfer, so moving from one sort of headquarters of a company to another site, you're granted 3 years of access. Again, there are certain conditions that apply to this. So that was, we'll skip over that. That was, so that in broad terms, that sort of goods and services trade covered, and the sort of access that you get through the agreement. I just want to highlight now something that is perhaps less directly relevant for you as businesses, but it's to emphasize that while businesses out there sort of doing the hard work of actually trading, or often not, as the minister has highlighted, but I want to assure you that we, on the government side, are continuing to actively improve the conditions for trade through the EPA. So the agreement isn't just a piece of paper or 1,000 pieces of paper that sit on a shelf. It stays live, and one of the ways it does that is through the joint institutions that the EPA establishes. And these are government-to-government committees that are created to sort of monitor implementation of the commitments, to discuss issues if they arise, ultimately to oversee disputes if that was to ever come forward. We hope not. And sort of to foster collaboration and ongoing improvement in the operation of the agreement. So one thing I do want to highlight here is that there will be fora for you as businesses to engage in these discussions that we're having at government level. And it's critical that our government decisions are informed by your needs as businesses. So please, as you've done today, continue to get involved with JAMPRO and your other business support organizations, because that's the only way that we can make sure that the policy that we make is tailored to your needs. This next slide looks a bit scary, and I'm not going to go through it. But it's just to highlight that the EPA is just one important part of your whole sort of export process. Yes, it provides access into the UK market. Yes, it provides protections for you. But there are a whole other set of regulatory and standards commitments or requirements that you may need to meet, depending on what your product or service is, to get access to that market. And it's great that we're hearing from the Bureau of Standards today, because I think that they might be able to speak to some of these specific issues. But when this goes round, when these get shared round, you'll be able to see some of the links with the information that's already been provided by the UK government website that helps you sort of understand what these different requirements might be for your specific product. So just to wrap up then, to reiterate, this was not about giving you all of the information in the EPA. You are not supposed to walk out of here now an EPA expert. I've been doing this for 4 years. I'm still not an EPA expert. Don't ask me what's on page 631 or whatever. But as I say, it's you need to get familiar with, if you're a business, you need to get familiar and comfortable with some of this language: duties, tariffs, market access, standards. Because this is what enables you to take that step from being a local producer and seller to an international one. This is the sort of the language of that world. So I'm hoping that this is the sort of first step on that journey. So just a quick reminder then of what the EPA does for businesses. One, it provides a preferential market access. That's through duty-free access. It's also through the flexible rules of origin, etc. 2, it provides predictability and transparency. Make one more plug for EPA ratification, because that is the thing that will really give that sort of long-term predictability. And 3, it provides a set of mechanisms for you as business to feed in your views in a structured way to to the government policy-making process. And I think that's really valuable. And just to highlight then where we want to get to, increase export values. I guess it should just be with like 5 exclamation marks, export more. But increasing the number of companies as well. It's not just the same big companies increasing their exports. We want new companies breaking into that export market, especially SMEs. And we want to close that EPA utilization gap. 83% for Jamaican exporters into the UK. There's 70. There's headroom there and that should be low-hanging fruit. So we want to see more of that. And then a continued diversification of the export offer. And that. So here's just focus on the bit on the right-hand side. Here are links to all the sorts of information that you will need to sort of take this to the next step to understand exactly what you need to do for your specific product to access the market. More information on the EPA. We have some. The gov.uk website has tariff tools that walk you through step by step to understand how to classify your good, what benefits are available to it, how to access them. And one last thing I'd like to do is just do a plug for the Department for Business and Trade's Exporting is Great potential portal. So this is a portal for UK exports. All right. So a lot of the conversation so far has been about Jamaican exports to the UK. Remember back to those the bilateral trade figures that we had earlier. A lot of the stuff that's coming into Jamaica is stuff that helps improve production here in Jamaica. So the quality and innovation that you see in UK exports can be a really important part of your journey. So just use that portal as a way of finding some of those exports from the UK, and of course speak to Hadari and Avril from the DBT team at the High Commission. So that is me. Thank you very much. Oh yes. It was both goods and services, but primarily services, and primarily within that tourism bouncing back after the pandemic. So that we're still seeing that sort of from the dip that recovery. But as the High Commissioner mentioned earlier, that may look good, 43% year on year. If you zoom out, you have a 10-year period where it's essentially stayed at the same level. So all we're doing is getting back up to baseline, and it's been at baseline for more or less 10 years now. Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Dan. That was a very comprehensive presentation, and I'm sure there'll be more questions during the Q&A session. If I was exporting sauces, I would definitely take up the opportunity. 0% tariff, that's an amazing opportunity. And that 87% gap that we need to close, as Minister highlighted, that is serious, and I think we need to double down on where those opportunities are. Thank you very much, Dan. Our next speaker, our next session, will delve into how to benefit from the CARIFORUM-UK EPA through an understanding of quality goods and rules of origin. Dan spoke to this earlier, and the benefits of rules of origin. And I think it's important for us to delve even further to understand the details of what the benefits are. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome Shandilane Davis, Senior Director, International and Industry Liaison for Jamaica Customs Agency. Thank you.
Her Excellency Judith Slater, Senator, the Most Honorable Auburn Hill, and Madam President Shillette Cox. Distinguished guests and colleagues, good morning. It is my pleasure to be with you this morning to share on the Protocol 1 to the CARIFORUM-UK Economic Partnership Agreement that deals specifically with rules of origin. Oh, thank you. The big button. Okay, all right, so let me, right. Thank you. So today, we will be provided with an overview of the Protocol 1. We'll be answering questions: what are rules of origin? Why rules of origin? We'll be looking at the general rules of origin as well as product-specific rules of origin, the role of customs in the grand scheme of things, and the current status of Jamaica's implementation of the CARIFORUM-UK EPA, as well as some trade figures. So let's dive right in. So, Protocol 1. Dan would have spoken in general terms about the overarching EPA. So Protocol 1 to the rules of origin was developed specifically with respect to trading goods to support, thank you, to support the objectives of the agreement in and of itself. So these objectives with respect to trading goods would be reduction of trade barriers and enhanced market access, predictable market access for both the UK and CARIFORUM traders, duty-free and quota-free market access into the UK for all CARIFORUM originating goods except for arms and ammunitions. So we need to make that very clear. And so whether it's sauce or it is juices, all our originating goods get 0% tariffs on entry into the UK once it's originating. And gradual liberalization for UK exports of sensitive products into the region over a 25-year period. Just to explain to you that how we negotiated our liberalization of goods in CARIFORUM, it's a double tranche. So we have our zero basket, where we would have immediately liberalized several products, bringing them to 0% on entry into Jamaica and the other CARIFORUM states. And there are another set of goods that would have been put in what we call a phased basket. So over this 25-year period, commencing in 2008, we would have been gradually reducing tariffs on those products until we get to 0%. We also have an exclusions basket, and those are some very sensitive items that Dan indicated. Some of them are items of Chapter 15, which are fats and oils, are agricultural items. Some areas that we're strong in, meat of swine, poultry. So we would have put them on our exclusions list to give the industry adequate protection for expansion. Because as Dan also intimated, and the High Commissioner, there is a development component to this EPA. So the aim is not to create a deficit in our productive sector. So what are rules of origin? Rules of origin are a set of criteria that determine where the good was made. That is, its economic nationality. They outline the conditions under which a good may be considered as having been originated in a country. So it's not enough to say that I manufactured it here for it to have been deemed originating. There are conditions that must be met based on the general rule of origin, which we will get into a little bit later. They may be general or specific and differ according to individual trade agreements as agreed between the parties to that agreement. So what is important is that all the rules of origin that you will encounter, whether in the EPA or other trade agreements to which Jamaica is party, would have been agreed on by the parties. So we weren't caught by surprise. All right? Rules of origin ensure that the benefits of the agreement are only given to those products that originate in one of the parties. So I hope you're beginning to see the role that customs plays before we get to that slide. So why? Rules of origin are used in international trade, and Dan referred to the HS, the harmonized system, and it supports rules of origin. As he said, it's an international tool used by over 200 countries globally, and it's harmonized, so it unifies the definition or descriptor for or how goods are classified, and it therefore makes rules of origin much easier for us to navigate and implement across countries. So they're used in international trade every time the treatment of an imported item varies, depending on whether it was produced, where it was produced. That is, every time there needs to be a distinction based on the country of origin. So we use rules of origin to identify country of origin for specific import treatments. And so such as the application of import duties, quotas and other quantitative measures, sanitary and phytosanitary restrictions, trade statistics, standards requirements, anti-dumping and countervailing measures. And so rules of origin are applicable to both preferential and non-preferential trade agreements. Now, the EPA is what we will call a preferential trade agreement because the aim is to grant preferential market access. Non-preferential agreements are usually used for marking, standards, just to ensure quota management, and so forth. So rules of origin are widely used in international trade. So, general rules of origin. Now, rules of origin, as I said before, are broken into general rules that are overarching and are applied when determining origin to grant market access. And then we have product-specific rules of origin that we'll address a little bit later. So general rules of origin, as I said, addresses some of the basic elements of preferential trade agreements. First of all, it addresses and defines origin criteria in the larger sense. The good is either wholly obtained, and wholly obtained is not as transparent as you may think it is. And the EPA and Protocol 1 will outline up to, I think, around 12 to 14 conditions or criteria for determining whether the good is wholly obtained. So if it's an animal, it would have to be born here. If it's fish, it would have to be fished, and it determines the parameters in the sea or ocean that we can fish, the vessel registration, and those kind of specifics. Or it may be substantially transformed. And that substantial transformation speaks to other mechanisms to determine origin. It can either be a change at the tariff heading, in which the extra-regional component would have been classified within a heading other than that of the final product. It may be a value-added rule where the extra-regional content or regional content constitute a percentage of the final good. It may be a chemical transformation, depending on the kind of good. And then we have de minimis, or the tolerance rule. Basically what that provides for, and within the meaning of the EPA provides for a 15% de minimis. What does that mean? It means that irrespective of the rule or that is applied to your product, there is room, if the extra-regional content, the non-originating content, is within the framework or the percentage of the de minimis value, it can be deemed originating. I'm trying to simplify as much as possible. It's a very technical area, and that's why I'm going to make a big invitation at the end to contact us. We do provide that service. We offer training to your private and public sector members, but we also assist you and guide you with where your whether or not your goods will originate, and I'll explain that a little later. Then, of course, we have the direct consignment rule. These rules that I'm looking at now are quite pervasive across all trade agreements. They seek to address these areas. And the direct consignment rule is essentially that the cargo, the goods, originating goods, should leave the UK directly to Jamaica. There are accommodations made for exceptions where for trade routing purposes or other purposes, it may need to stop in a third country. And its stay in that third country is guided by the rules of the agreement. That will vary across agreements, and so it will require substantiating documentation, the level of manipulation that was undertaken there, because the aim is that the originating status of the good would not have been compromised. Proof of origin or documentary evidence. And so we'll look at, this is key, Protocol 1 addresses the form and manner of the proof of origin. So for instance, those of you who have traded with the UK would have used the EUR1, and so and that is the form. And if you look at the agreement, it's quite detailed as the presentation of that form. It's so detailed that it outlines the graphic, the size of the graphic, the density of the ink. It's very specific, and how it should be utilized. The conditions for submission. Fortunately, the EPA covers such things as retrospective issuance of the certificate of origin, which is which is very good for you, the trader. Peradventure, you would have had some situation where the good went to the UK, not accompanied by the EUR1. There are conditions in the Protocol 1 that if your circumstances meet those conditions, the Jamaica Customs Agency can certify and issue a retrospective certificate of origin. But it's all on condition. The validity of the document, the EUR1, excuse me a moment. Well, within the context of the agreement, it speaks to a 10-month verification lifespan within which verification can be conducted, and the overarching proof of origin speaks to, yes, I believe, yes, it's 10 months. That's another matter. Verification of origin. And I'm going to, within Article 34 of the EPA, discusses what we call verification of origin. This is a post-clearance verification or check. So both parties to the agreement, UK and CARIFORUM, retains the right, whether randomly or based on intelligence, to launch an investigation to determine whether or not the commodity coming into the country actually is originating. Right, and this is a very comprehensive process, wherein which each party to the agreement engages with the customs administration of that country in writing, outlining the areas of suspicion and asking us to validate or to confirm that the good is originating, and that is accompanied by the supporting document. This is very important for us here as exporters, and that is why pre-clearance, pre-export, the Jamaica Customs Agency through our incentives branch engages with you, comes into your facility and oversees your processes, requests your material safety sheets, and all of these things to ensure that the product that we are certifying actually qualifies. And we can answer the UK with great assurance because we would have done the work. And within our internal process, we would have engaged to ensure that any changes to your productive processes would have been reported to us. Accumulation. Dan spoke to the possibility of getting inputs from the African states, Pacific, the overseas territories of the UK, and so forth. Articles 3 and 4 of the EPA addresses accumulation between ACP countries, the overseas territories of the UK, the EU, and CARIFORUM. And what that provides for is, as he outlined earlier, where you are manufacturers, producers, can get inputs from these countries to use in your productive processes. Those inputs would be deemed originating. And it doesn't matter if it's a simple process. And just to clarify, as I use the term simple process, sometimes we practitioners utilize our jargon, and think it's so simple. But essentially, when we looked at general origin criteria, we spoke about substantial transformation. It means that the product at start must be substantially changed by the time it gets to the end of the process. So we have some processes that we deem to be not substantial, right? And we call them simplified processes in simplified language. And so irrespective of the process that will be executed on the accumulated input or the input that is being taken from those other countries under the agreement, irrespective of whether or not it's substantial or simple, it will not impact the originating status. Now, this, I must be clear, this accumulation is based on condition, especially with regard to the ACP states, OCTs, and the EU. According to the agreement, there are 3 conditions to be met. There must be an agreement on administrative cooperation. It must mean that the input is originating within the meaning of the agreement, and it would have been, this administrative agreement would be made public by either party through the agreed upon mechanism so that we know that this has taken place. So it is possible, and but these are the conditions. Under Article 5, we would have negotiated as CARIFORUM accumulation with neighboring territories. Some of these territories are Guatemala, Venezuela, many of our Latin American friends. Once again, that is not yet in effect because it's also based on condition. If it is that, and current discussions are underway with CARIFORUM as to how we are going to bring into effect Article 5. But then again, that's a discussion between the parties. And of course, administrative cooperation, which examines exchange of information, agreements on cooperation, and facilitation. That covers the general rules of origin. And I've taken this route before we dive into some more specific information so that there's a broader understanding. So specific rules of origin. So product-specific rules of origin defines the working or processing required to be carried out on non-originating materials in order for the final product that is manufactured to become originating. So this is where we're talking about substantial transformation. And so the design of PSROs is often a reflection of trade sensitivities, the desire to protect local industry or industries, and the availability of access to key productive inputs. So essentially, when we sit at the table and we are reviewing product-specific rules, we are bearing in mind the needs of the productive sector, and we engage with the productive sector to find out what is happening currently in their business model, the direction that they would like to go. And while we're not looking at CARICOM, just to say, in the current review of rules of origin for CARICOM, we would have reviewed the product-specific rules for CARICOM. And so we would have called on our manufacturing sector to share with us, should we go ahead with this current rule? Are you going to be making changes in your plans that you would need a more flexible rule? Because the aim of rules of origin, as well as trade agreements, is to make it as possible, simple, and as easy as possible to obtain market access. So it makes no sense that we negotiate and agreed upon a rule that we can't meet. So we will have to think of our trade sensitivities. We'll have to think of whether or not we can access the inputs. So if Jamaica doesn't produce this, or the CARIFORUM does not produce a particular input, it makes no sense to make a restrictive rule for us to import and incorporate that input into our final good. Otherwise, we would not obtain preferential market access, and we would have literally shot ourselves in the foot. So it's very important, product-specific rules. And I've shared with you a snapshot from Annex, wrong device, Annex 2, and I don't know if you can make it out, but I took a snapshot of Annex 2 to Protocol 1. Annex 2 to Protocol 1 deals with the product's specific rules. So if you can see, we have our, thank you, our column here, heading, HS heading number, that's column 1. Column 2, I'm pointing as if I have a pointing device. Description of product. And column 3 or 4 would describe the working or processing carried out on non-originating materials that confer originating status. Why do we have 2 columns addressing this? Because the EPA embraces, in some instances, what we call co-equal rules. It gives a level of flexibility to the manufacturer to determine which rule he can meet. It is not the case in all of the annex, but there are products where you will see 2 rules available for the manufacturer to try and meet. So right now, if you look at row 3, you will see EX 1703. And we have the EX there to specify that we're only speaking to the good in column 2. Nothing else that falls on the HS heading 1703. And for those of you who interact with customs often, you probably know it as the tariff. When you call us, you say, can I get a tariff code? So we're looking now at the tariff code at the heading level 1703. And this addresses molasses resulting from the extraction or refining of sugar, flavored or colored. And I'm showing this example so that you understand how it works. The rule that is here, and it's less flexible because you don't have an or option. It's manufacturing which the value of any materials of Chapter 17 used does not exceed 30% of the ex-works price of the product. If you look, and so that is a rule to be met. So what this means is that materials from Chapter 17, which are generally sugar-based, can be used, but it cannot exceed 30% of the ex-works price. This becomes a slightly difficult rule to be met by some of our juice producers, syrup producers, because that is a large percent. We would have exceeded 30% of the ex-works price if you're making things like syrups and concentrates. So looking at this rule, you would not get preferential market access into the UK on the basis of this rule of origin. No, we don't. But I see you have found a resolution for all the manufacturers in the room. All right? So the role of customs. So customs is a designated competent authority for the administration of rules of origin within the scope of the agreement. The Jamaica Customs Agency has direct responsibility for the implementation, enforcement, and administration of the provisions detailed in Protocol 1, and we do this while ensuring the facilitation of legitimate trade and protecting Jamaica's borders. And so that is the core of our role. And as you would imagine, having fulfilling that responsibility requires us to extend ourselves to provide for our productive sector in as much as possible. And as I said earlier, we do provide training, sensitization, hand-holding to ensure that our productive sector can gain access. So our current status, with regard to the liberalization schedule, as we discussed earlier about the phase basket, Jamaica is fully implemented and fully aligned to what we agreed to. Our customs data management system, or ASICODA World as you know it, automatically updates the changes annually on January 1st of each year. So we are always compliant. And just to delve a little bit, I undertook to look at some figures for you. Currently, we are doing our own analysis of trade under our various agreements and looking at the CARIFORUM-UK EPA within the last 2 years, January 21 to 2022. What we did differently, and so this is not the gamut of the trade data, but it is still in the analysis is still in train. So I just pulled out 2 sections for you. We looked at exports, general exports over the period, and exports under the agreement, because I think what we need to see really is how is the agreement being managed, how is it being utilized. So what we found for the period, we had a total number of exports, 8,116 shipments leaving the ports of Jamaica for the UK. But of that number, only 222 shipments were exported under the agreement. And that constitutes 2.73% of the total number. Pardon? 2.73% of the total number. So the total number of shipments that were exported to the UK, 8,116, but under the agreement, 222. And that is 2.73%. The main commodities were rum, and that was the majority of that amount, sauces, some spices, a few shipments of tinned ackee and tinned callaloo. No. Not necessarily in all cases, it depends. And I don't want to delve into EU trade. I got a signal that my time is almost up. But quite a few of our commodities exported, we have a larger trade volume with the EU, with the majority of our products. But quite a few, based on our research to date, quite a few of our exporters, we don't transit necessarily the UK to come to the EU. We also use Rotterdam. Based on, and that's why I didn't want to delve too much, because we're still looking at our research. But what we are looking at are also goods that would have been exported to the UK, and that is for home use. So it is for UK use. So we focus, not transit goods. But in the case where it had transited to the EU, it would not have been recorded as a UK export, but rather a EU export, and it would have been utilized under the EPA. But we did that kind of filtering. Volume of trade, value of trade for 2022. What we noticed, we looked at the trade figures in terms of the value for the period. What we found is that for imports, we had a total of 23 shipments being imported under the agreement for the period. And these were largely lubricating oils, lubricating greases of HS 271019 and race car tires of HS 401110. And this constituted, or this was valued at 6.18 billion Jamaican dollars, whilst our exports were valued at 9.73 billion Jamaican dollars. And we would have said it already that we have a surplus, yes? And that is evident here. And so what we try to do, I'm sorry, I like to move, but what we try to do is to give you a snapshot based on the data mined by customs with all the interventions and declarations made, both import and export, to see what was happening in the trade. We are looking at the possible reasons. We have conceptualized some, but we have not signed off on them as yet. We still need to do checks. But that is the real situation. So there is scope, ladies and gentlemen, for increased exports, as the minister would have said. And Dan, you would have looked at just great underutilization of the agreement in the UK. So things are coming in, but they're not being traded under the agreement. So we may need to do on both sides greater public education and engagement regarding the benefits of trading under the agreement so that we can have a more fruitful trading relationship. And with that, I got my cue. I got it a long time ago. Just to say thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to your other questions in the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. I always like to pull out the critical numbers. The 2.7% of shipments. That is actually quite amazing. That we really need to do better than that. So our final information session will have delivered by Dr. Velton Gooden, the Executive Director of Bureau of Standards, and he'll be speaking to labeling, packaging, and other technical requirements for access to the UK market. And again, this is where the critical information is being shared, and I'm sure our online viewers are keen on hearing this information now. Please, Mr. Gooden.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, and especially our guests that are tied in online, Zoom. So in my presentation this morning, I wanted to talk to you, just give a brief overview of some of the high trade numbers, and then to spend most of my time talking about the label as well as other technical requirements. So, first of all, for the benefit of those who are intending to export to the UK, just wanted to clarify what we mean by the UK. All right, so as displayed there, the UK consists of the 4 constituent countries, England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. As was mentioned before, looking into the trade numbers, and Her Excellency mentioned this before, but the trade numbers up to the end of the third quarter for 2022 is 397 million, which represents a 43.3% increase over prior year, or about 120 million. But as was said before previously, that's coming from a low base since we are in a recovery mode. When we look a little bit further into the numbers, the UK exports to Jamaica actually totaled 93 million, and this represents a 14.8% increase, or about 12 million pounds. However, on the other side, in terms of Jamaican export, that amounted to 304 million, which was a 55.1% increase, or about 108 million. So when we look at the total goods, though, that is traded between UK and other countries, then we can see a definite opportunity here, because our total trade between the countries represent less than 0.1% of all goods into the UK, and Jamaica ranks 111th in terms of their trading partners. So it really presents a huge opportunity for us who are intending to export. Looking at the things that were exported during the period that is being highlighted, we see that beverages is a lion's share of what was exported, 28.2, thank you, 28.2 million. That was followed by fruits and vegetables, followed by miscellaneous goods, cereals, and unspecified goods. So again, in terms of goods, beverages continue to lead. I want to look now at some of the requirements, trade requirements, and what specifically do, especially persons who desire to export to the UK, what is it that they need to take into consideration? So first, import controls. So import controls are imposed either through the statutory instruments or the UK National Import Prohibition Legislation, which is the Import, Export, and Custom Powers Defense Act of 1939. In terms of the import licensing, it is good that for most import of goods, no import license is required. However, for some specific import goods, and some are mentioned there, like scrap metal, brown sugar, pimento, live animals, and firearms, specific import license are required. And on the lower part of the slide are some websites that you can get information as to how you can apply for these import licenses or the certificate of free trade. So just to summarize that portion, if you're going to, you may have an excellent product that you've spent a lot of time innovating, come up with a great label, but first of all, you need to know the process, right? Whether it is that you require an import license or a certificate of free trade, if you're desirous of accessing the market. And also to be export ready. By export ready, we mean that you must know both the local requirements as also the UK requirements in order to access that market. So what are some of these local requirements of which we refer? Well, first, if you're intending to export, you have to register with JAMPRO. All right, so we're putting a plug here for JAMPRO, our sister agency. All right, so make sure that you're registered with them. And you must also, especially if you're exporting certain types of goods, ensure that you are compliant with the local regulations. So for example, the NCRA, the National Compliance and Regulatory Authority, which operates under the BSJ, soon to become a separate agency, they basically have responsibilities under the Processed Food Act, the Standards Act, the Weight and Measures Act, all right? And so you have to be registered with them. You have to have your processed food registration certificate, your standards registration certificate, and also the Ministry of Health. You have to ensure that you have your public health registration if you're exporting food. Maybe your people have to have a food handler's permit, as an example. And also, you have to know the applicable standards. The world in which we live today is very complex, and if it is that you want to access, certain retail multiples, Sainsbury, Asda, or Tesco, you have to ensure that you're meeting, high food safety requirements. Maybe you have to get registered on one of what we call the Global Food Safety Initiative programs, which simply means that you have to meet GMP, Good Manufacturing Practice requirements, and other specific product standards. So, again, we implore you to check with the BSJ. Most of the standards are now available on our website. You can go and purchase the standards on our website through our e-commerce platform. But make sure you check the standard and you know what is the local and overseas requirements for your particular product. Check also if licensing is required for your product. And of course, check the label, marking, and marketing requirements. So we're going to look at some of the labeling requirements for certain types of goods into the UK. So if it is that you are intending to export a prepackaged product, if are certain types of products, for example, if you're exporting a product that has meat content, seafood content, then there are certain specific requirements for labeling. Of course, for meat, fish, or seafood products, they must be labeled with the country of origin. And as my customs colleague mentioned before, it's not just simple from Jamaica, depending if you're accessing the EPA, it can be from a range of countries, but you have to know the specifics of that. All packs of poultry, sheep, goat, and swine meat must have a batch code identifying the meat. And that's very important because traceability is a big issue. And so, sometimes as far as the animal, which has an ear tag, you must be able to trace all the way back. So in the event of a recall or a product, a recall, right? You are able now to trace back and show the origin of that particular product. So what are some mandatory information? What are some mandatory information that must be on your label? Well, these include the name of the food, must be there. The quantity of ingredients must be there. And these are usually listed, as you are aware, in order of quantity, with the one that is highest in terms of weight first, and then in descending order. Also, if your product has any food allergens, things that people are allergic to, we're talking about like seafood, nuts, or maybe dairy products, those must be declared on the label. Or even if your factory produce allergenic products, but your product is not specifically, does not have an allergen in it, you still have to declare that, because some people, very sensitive, they can become sick at very low levels of food allergens. Then in the back of pack, nutritional labeling is required for prepackaged food. On the front of pack panel, then in the UK, they use what is called a stoplight model in order to, for consuming public to have a quick idea as to what are the levels of fat, saturates, sugar, and salt that is in your product. So just as with the stoplights that you interact with on the roads, it has a red, amber, and green light. And as our next slide shows, that if your food contains high levels of fat, in excess of, let's say, 17.5 grams per 100 gram, then that would be indicated by a red. Also saturates in excess of 5 grams per 100 gram, also that would be red. And total sugars in excess of 22.5 grams, that also will be red, as also high sodium or salt content in excess of 1.5 gram per 100 gram. So these are some of the labeling requirements that are necessary, are mandatory. Also very important is what we call the best before or use by date. That must be evident on the packaging. And the name and address of the food business operator responsible for the food must also be very clear and evident on the packaging. If it is that you're exporting a good that has alcoholic content, and we know that Jamaica, alcohol is a big export, rum, into the UK. But if you have a product that has maybe a sauce and you have some alcohol in it, then in excess of 1.25%, then that must also be declared. So, as I said before, the country of origin, very important, the specific storage condition of the food. So maybe you're exporting a product that requires chill temperature, meaning from 0 to 5 degrees C, or maybe between 40 and 45 degrees Fahrenheit. That must be declared. Also, if it is a frozen product, basically what we mean that the temperature at which this is stored is at 0 degrees Fahrenheit, or maybe minus 18 degrees C. So that has to be clear as well. It's important that you do not make unsubstantiated declarations about your food. So be careful about putting things like high fiber or a good source of calcium, right, on your food, unless, of course, you're able to show the documentation that that is actually so. Also, it is consistent with the nutritional labeling that is on that food. And of course, if any additives are in the food, added vitamins or minerals, those two must be declared. In the food industry, as an example, packaging is considered food. So if your packaging is in contact with the food, then the same requirements have to be met. So be careful about the type of packaging you use. If you're using certain types of plastics or ceramics or cellophane, ensure that these don't, over time, leach into the product and create a safety hazard for the consuming public. So that has to be taken into consideration. And of course, as I said before, you have to show written compliance that you're meeting these requirements. So in summary, know the process that is applicable. Know whether you qualify for any of the benefits under the EPA that Dan mentioned before, or under the customs requirement that my colleague from customs spoke about before. Ensure that you're export ready. Speak with the agency, speak with JAMPRO, speak with the BSJ, JBDC and other agencies, especially under our business ministry. That's what we do very well. We enable, we facilitate business and export and trade. And Minister is very passionate, as you heard him before, about increasing the export numbers. And of course, keep proper records. If you're in the export business, at some time you're going to be audited, either by customs, either by your partner in the UK, your distributor and partner, you're going to be audited. And so make sure that your records are there to substantiate whatever your claims are. So we have at the BSJ certain units that are specialized in certain markets. So as an example, if you're going into the US, we have a specialized unit, the Food Safety Modernization Branch, that is focused on exports to the US. For other countries, including the UK, which the focus is on this morning, we have the Regional and International Trade Branch. All right, so when you come to the BSJ, if you're targeting the UK market, that's the unit that you need to ask for. And we have a wealth of information. That unit is also tasked with tracking all of the changes in country requirements and they're live, and we try to put it out on our social media and on our website. But if you have any doubt, please feel free to come and talk with us, and we'll update you. In October of 2021, we also launched the Client Services Program, and its associated BSJME app. So if it is that you need information about any market access, then you can either come to us, or you can download the BSJME app, get registered with us, and we can have a dialogue and interchange of information using that particular facility. Now, as I mentioned before, we're very big on training, and Minister also mentioned that. So we have designed a number of specialized training courses that especially are targeted towards giving you the information, and allowing you to know what is required in order to access these markets and some of the retail trade chains. So there is training courses on good agricultural practices, good manufacturing practices, ISO 9001, and our ministry is leading by example, because recently they also got ISO 9001 certified, the first government ministry to be so certified. Again, leading by example. ISO 22000, recently there was a scope expansion, so that now our division, National Certification Body of Jamaica, is also now able, very soon, we are kind of completing that exercise, certify growers, primary producers to global gap, as also packing houses. So that's something to watch out for, as also HACCP. So that's our vision, and those are some of the websites that you can get additional information about some of the things that I spoke about this morning. So I want to use this opportunity to thank you for having us this morning. Try to be very brief and concise. Walking, our offices are located at 6 Winchester Road. We have regional offices, website www.bsj.org.jm. Our primary contact is by telephone 632-4275, or any of our listed numbers. We'll be happy to speak with you. We are the business ministry. We are facilitators of business, and we like nothing best than to enable you to achieve your export dreams, and this one particularly into the UK market. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gooden. Very detailed presentation on the requirements for packaging. I understand that we have just one session left, and then we'll go quickly into any Q&A, specific Q&A anybody may have. But I understand that we may have a live delivery via Zoom. I don't know if we're set up for it as yet. We have Mr. John Mafood of the JMEA. He'll be providing us with some success stories of exporters going into the UK. Yes. So while we wait, I thought it was very important. In fact, what I will do, I'll take this opportunity to start just kind of giving a summary of some of the activities that we've spoken on, so that at the end, I won't have to delve into an extensive opening remarks. I think some of the key points of information that we've gotten here today is the gap that we're not taking advantage, or the gap that I'm recognizing, or our lack of taking advantage of the EPA. That 2.7% of shipments going to the UK, that 87% of individuals who are not utilizing the EPA, those are significant numbers for us to really look back and assess to see how we can improve. I'm seeing that they're ready for us now. Sir John Mahfood, I hope you're hearing, and it's all.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can all hear you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. Unfortunately, I am Jonathan Mahfood, son of John
Mahfood. My
Mahfood.
apologies.
So, no problem. I know you're expecting the bigger, greater, but I'll have to do it today.
That's fine. Over to you.
Yeah, so we have been in the UK now for over 10 years. We've been working with a very experienced partner over there, and they have really been able to get us a nice foothold into the independent stores, and so we're found along through all the shops. Really, the bigger issue is getting into, the private stores, the chain stores. That has been a little bit tougher because there's been relatively few that control the entire market. And the Jamaican diaspora over there is slightly different than what we're used to in other areas in the States and so on. We're working really with, third and fourth generation Jamaicans in the region. But saying that, we have seen that the trend in the market has been online sales, right? That's kind of the trend that we see everywhere. And in that area, we have seen great success. Our products are sold in multiple sources now. So they're sold from our importer, our distributor over there on their site. It's also sold in places like CARIFORUM and Amazon in UK. In fact, we were approached by Amazon to have our products sold on the UK marketplace. We were lucky to be able to attend the IFE in 2022, where we were able to meet with them, and they were really happy to have our products on board. In fact, we were very pleasantly surprised to find at the IFE the love that so many of the attendees, so many of the people, so many of the businesses really had for Jamaica and for Jamaican products. Everybody is coming up to us and really trying to show off their heritage and talk about their family relations. And it really was heartening. In fact, a lot of the companies there, a lot of the B2B that we did while we were there was talking to other companies who had the heritage and who wanted to legitimize their products in a certain way. They have their products currently created in the UK or in other countries, but they wanted to bring a lot of that work back to Jamaica. They wanted to bring a lot of that creating the products back to Jamaica. So they, engaged us to make different products for them, and we thought that was really good. They wanted that. They saw the value of Jamaica, having the proper Jamaica branding, having that type of heritage on their products. And so it's been fantastic to see. A lot of things are changing, and so the sales are going online, and we have all the influencers, and so you see people exploring new and different products outside of their norm, and they have to go to find the products. And so that's kind of what we've seen. We get requests all the time. Where can we get this? Where can we get that? And so it's been great that we can direct them easily and quickly to different products. So hopefully with these types of initiatives spurred on by JAMPRO and the British High Commission, that we can actually realize these more of these initiatives, that we can actually manufacture the stuff in Jamaica and help out and send the products abroad, because it would be a great boon. So yeah, so thank you very much. I'm very happy to be a part of this.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. And I must state from Jamaica Teas, and I think the critical component here is the online sales through Carib Shopper and Amazon UK. And I'm assuming that, as you mentioned, that's the bulk of where your sales are coming from that go into the UK. So I think that's a critical point for us to learn from here. All right. Thank you very much, Jonathan, and I appreciate you taking the time out.
Thank you very much.
Okay. As we move to close, I don't know if there are any questions from the audience, specific questions. Go ahead. There's a mic behind you.
Thank you very much. I have been put on the spot by Mr. Hart. I'm Cheryl Gordon. I'm from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, specifically the Trade Agreements Implementation Coordination Unit. It's a long name. We were one of those that helped to negotiate the EPA.
Nice.
So I have some responses to the ratification issue, but I also have some questions. So first, just to say thanks so much to JAMPRO and the UK High Commission for this seminar. It's really timely, and we really hope that there'll be more of them. We also are really curious to know what the problem is with exports. We don't know from where we stand what the issues are, so we always need to hear from our traders what issues might be. We want to thank Minister Hill for his emphasis on exports, which of course is a key pillar of the foreign trade policy, which was revised in 2017. So Minister Hill, thanks so much for that. And just to say that the EPA was, as Mr. Hart explained, it was negotiated in record time. Trade agreements can take 20 years to negotiate, but this one was fast. So we really wanted to ink it before the UK left the EU in 2020. And what we did was to focus on locking in some of those things that would make sure there's no disruption to trade, but we left some little administrative bits for the governments to sort out, which don't really affect the trade or don't affect exports, right? And one of those is ratification. Thankfully, we have a beautiful system called common law system, which allows us to sign an agreement, and then we sort out ratification later on. So it does not affect your ability to ramp up exports. In terms of UK imports coming in, our customs people have actually, as you heard, Jamaica has been implementing its tariff cuts. We're on time, but we didn't do them manually. A lot of CARIFORUM states are doing them manually. So every year, somebody has to decide to do the tariff cuts. In Jamaica, customs gazetted this thing, so it's automatic. So I would emphasize that the UK could really push that piece of information to their traders, because maybe they don't understand that. And that would probably help to give them some comfort whenever they raise the issue of ratification. My question then is twofold. One is the DCTS, the Developing Countries Trading Scheme that the UK has brought in, says they're bringing in this year. We don't have a lot of information about it. Early limited analysis suggests that some of the provisions could see a situation where some of the CARIFORUM exports into the UK could face serious competition from least developed countries, which are not in CARIFORUM. But we just don't have the information. So we really need this information urgently to do a proper analysis. If there is that kind of competition, we know that Jamaica may benefit or not benefit, we don't know. Some of our traders, it might not bother them. Others might not be able to compete. So we really need this information very urgently. And just finally, just to say once again that thank you very much for this, and I will just want to leave the message that please, we do want you also to ramp up exports, and don't worry about the whatever administrative things we have to work out, which include things like development cooperation from the UK, which, you know, we're still working things out on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Sure, go ahead.
Hello, good morning. It was good to see Jonathan Mifud, and I think what needs to happen is you need to have a number of people, particularly in the UK, champion this. I know Charlie Johnson has a son, and he was making patties throughout near Camden Market, I remember. But he did very well in Sainsbury's and Tesco, very well. And it may be a good idea to get people from the UK to champion this. People can see this. A second point, the lady from Customs made a very valid point. I think you need to to publicize more, so people in Jamaica would know, well, look, this is the procedure. Talking to Dan's point, this is how you go about things. I think it's a case that they just don't know. So you do have to go on this public education campaign. The third point I would say is, as far as Jamaican products are concerned, you've got to think where you have a competitive advantage. If you're talking about beverages, I assume most of that is rum, but you've got Domrep, Barbados, Cockspur, all that stuff. Yeah. So you've got to find things. I know Diane Edwards talked about castor oil and things like that. So you've got to find areas where it's so distinctive that you can do really well in the UK market. I mean, growing up in the UK, I remember as a boy drinking, was it Nutriment? I never knew where that was really made, but I knew every Sunday you used to have that as a punch. But I mean, you know, so you have to really find those competitive advantages where you can really, really shine. That's it, really.
Thank you for that input. In fact, I will reinforce that as one of the reasons why we actually pushed to have this event, because we recognize that there is a dearth of education. There needs to be more awareness around the EPA. And for us, this is the first step in generating a lot more information and awareness. The time frame to actually execute this event was very tight, but we said we're going to push through at least to get something, to get that momentum going. And the team really came together. Ivana, Karma, David, Jamila, Jean, I hope I'm not forgetting anything else. Antoinette, sorry, Antoinette. But the team really came together for a very short period of time to pull this off. And for our viewers online, I'm glad that we have this virtual space, because while we have, you know, maybe 15, 20 people, but I know that online we have a larger audience. I think we had 116 registrants. So the word will get out. This is our first effort, or one of many to come. So it is a journey. And I think we've started along the journey, or the right path of increasing awareness of the EPA, for the EPA, towards driving exports into the UK. As the minister says, we won't get wealthy as a nation by only servicing ourselves. We have to export. And with that said, thank you very much, Dan, for your presentations. Dr. Gooden, thank you very much. Are there any other questions before we close? Oh, there are questions from online. Perfect. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so we have a question online from Rohan Shirlington. He's asking, can you make exports to the UK fall under EPA mandatory? This will solve the deficit exponentially.
Dan, I think, Dan, that question is for you? No. Okay. Sure.
Rohan, just to say that, to remind you that exports under the agreement is based on condition that must be fulfilled. So we can't make it mandatory. Your product has to be originating. What we will encourage you to do is to access the information that is out there. And as I was just speaking with a colleague, the information is on the Jamaica Customs website, the Jamaica Trade Portal website, the UK Gov website. There are so many websites that publish that information. And you can contact us, and we will provide the guidance for your product. And so it's very important for you to know what you're producing, as was earlier said, and we can assist you to classify what you're producing to help to guide you as to whether your product as it is now qualifies, as well as provide you with assistance in inputs that you can use or processes that you can use to make it qualify. But we can't mandate it because it's based on conditions.
Okay, thank you for that, Chandeline. Another question from Ruhan is, in terms of logistics, which airline partner is preferred for a transatlantic shipment to and from the UK?
Which airline partner is the preferred partner for transatlantic trade? That doesn't come to mind, but what we will do, There are several options, but what we will do is we will reach out to you directly and share the relevant information. Could get his details.
So we have a question from Fabian Kilborn. Are there any current demands for any particular Jamaican products or services to the
From the UK.
to the UK?
To
So
the
Jamaican
UK.
products or services to the UK.
I mean, from Dan, you want to address? Right. Condiments, sauces, food and drinks. That's generally the appeal. Absolutely. And to plug as well, exporter services is also a huge component. We tend to always think goods. Our outsourcing sector locally is doing really well as it relates to exporter services. In fact, I'll do a shameless plug here. A team from JAMPRO is going to the UK to an event called Connect, Cross Connect, and that is a representation of the potential for exporter services into the UK. But to answer the question, it's generally around sauces, beverages, condiments, and fresh produce in some spaces. The challenges with fresh produce is that the shipping time frames pose an issue as it relates to expiry dates. But frozen is a category that, correct, which is very big, yes. Sorry. Berletta?
Oh, I just
you wanted to, please.
Thank you. And I agree with that, a set of products that are outlined, but I just wanted to add cosmetics, because that's a growing area. We're finding the whole beauty products area and personal care. There are some opportunities there that certainly we at JAMPRO have been exploring with our clients.
Yes, absolutely.
Sure.
That's fine. That's why it's an open forum.
Just to add, because it's largely traditional exports that we've been exporting for years, and there's a great need for diversification in our product and what it is that we're offering, even as times have evolved. And so it is important, and that's why I said I'm not JAMPRO, because I know they're doing a lot of market assessment to see the trends in the market. So it's important to make the link and get on board with JAMPRO, and also maybe join their trip. What is the correct name? Their mission to London with your product ideas to attend Connect to see what is out there with the UK market for your diversified product. Again, I'm not with JAMPRO, but go marketing.
You're with us. You're part of the team. So we do have JAMPRO does have a mission going to the UK in September. And we'll have a comprehensive plan and communication rolling out eventually. Any further questions? Sure.
Okay, so there is another question with regards to compliance of Jamaica regarding the reduction of tariffs. The question is being asked, can you expound how motor vehicles are treated from the UK coming into Jamaica?
Imports. Okay,
Go
that
ahead,
is all.
Effective January 1, 2023, the tariffs on motor vehicles meeting the originating criteria. So it's not that they're exported from the UK. They must meet the originating criteria, would have achieved a tariff rate of 0% import duties. And everybody's eyes are open. That also applies to the CARIFORUM EU EPA. But please be advised, it's not a EU or UK brand vehicle exported to Jamaica, but it's an EU or UK originating vehicle that would get the preferential market access. And we have product-specific rules for the motor vehicles. So please contact the Jamaica Customs Agency and we will guide you accordingly of the requirements to import your originating motor vehicle. Thank you.
Great question. The details are very, very important, right? Any more questions? That's it. And thank you very much for our viewers online. You brought the session to another dimension just now. Here I was ready to wrap up, and they said, no, hold on, Gabriel, I have a few questions for you. But I'm encouraged with the level of enthusiasm and interest, particularly from the online as well. And it shows that we always have to ensure that we engage our online audience. And so with that said, I won't prolong the discussions. Thank you very much all for staying and continuing with us. There is a survey. I'm getting the notification from, I'm trying to read lips a while ago, guys. I apologize. There's a survey that will be distributed for you to fill out. Please do. For our information, fill out the survey because it is critical for us in terms of this market intelligence and how we respond and adjust and communicate back to you as well. So please, we really request your support in that regard. And before you leave, please ensure to enjoy the refreshments, coffee, juice, snacks before you leave. Thank you very much and have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you.